Hey everyone, welcome to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Pitt Post-Game Show. I'm Chris Carter. He's Noah Hiles. We're your Pitt reporters. Noah's on site. He was there for Pitt's game in their 21-17 heartbreaker loss against Wake Forest. I'm Chris Carter. I'm still here in Pittsburgh. You know, y'all know me. I got a lot of duties. But Noah, we got to talk about this. Was a crazy game for a lot of reasons. I know we've said that a lot about Pitt's games this season. We do our good, bad, and ugly. What's crazy is I feel like there's so much good to pull out of this game in what is a terrible loss. But tell us what you find good about this game.
I mean, there were a lot of good things on offense, Chris.
Yep.
You just look at Christian Veilleux completed 62% of his passes. He threw for 300 yards. I thought he looked really good when this offense was running up tempo, something, maybe he learned back at his former school. Maybe he seems a little bit more comfortable there. I thought you got good production from multiple receivers. You got 100 yards on the ground from Sibo Flemister. I'm not sure how that only translated to 17 points.
That's
which we'll talk about later in the show. But we've said in however many of these post-game videos that we've done, Chris, that there might have been something to build off of against North Carolina or certainly against Louisville. But there's certainly something to build off of here based off of what the box score shows from the offense, because they played well as far as moving the football. There weren't a lot of 3 and outs. I also want to point out this stat here. On third down, Christian Veilleux, 10 of 14, 134 yards.
Wow.
8 touchdowns. Or no, 8 first downs, I should say.
I was like, what?
8 first downs and a touchdown. So every single one of his completions on third down, aside from one, resulted in either a first down or a touchdown. I mean, that's great quarterback play right there. But for one reason or another, it just did not translate to points. I think, maybe you could point the finger at play calling in certain situations or penalties, which, again, we'll get into in other parts. But I think overall there was a lot of good on offense. It just did not translate into hardly any points, Chris.
Yeah, that's the crazy part about this, Noah, is that you put his numbers in. College passer rating numbers is so weird. I don't know what their formula is, but I put it into a NFL passer rating stat cruncher. That would have been 96.1 as a NFL passer rating. His numbers from today, that's better than Patrick Mahomes this season. That's he had a good game.
Yeah.
And the touchdown pass that he threw to Bub Means, I was just saying, man, if I'm Wake Forest, I'm blitzing Christian Veilleux. I'm forcing him to think fast. They blitzed him. He took it on, threw a great pass to Bub Means on the touchdown. His pass to Kenny Johnson was smooth. And Sibo got 100 yards. Bub had 100 yards. You're absolutely right. There were so many good things about the offense. We'll get to the bad parts about it in a little bit. My good here, focusing on the defense, I thought Pitt's cornerbacks came to play. Right. A.J. Woods got 2 sacks, had 3 tackles for loss, was all over the field. And he's the guy that you and I have talked about in previous years where I thought he needed to step up. He stepped up in this game. MJ Devonshire running with his man downfield. A huge interception in the second half. And he's now done that 2 weeks in a row for Pitt in plays that should have won them the game. It was a big factor in them winning last week. It should have won them the game this week if the rest of their team could have gotten it together. But he intercepted the ball with 1:30 left, and it was a great form play. He pressed his man. The guy tried to push off. He didn't let him, and he was right where the ball was, snagged it in a combat catch, and that should have been what gave Pitt the ball to win. At Marquez Williams had another breakup. The Pitt cornerbacks, I know they gave up a touchdown in the end. That was Javon McIntyre who gave up the touchdown that he should have been able to knock away. They did give up a big drive there through the air late there where they shouldn't have. But Pitt's cornerbacks, I felt, were the best part of this defense and deserved a better finish to this game because I thought they did enough to win here. But Noah, we're saying all these good things about what is objectively a terrible loss for Wake Forest. What's your bad in this situation?
Well, I mean, my bad will be play calling in certain situations. I like the passing concepts that Cignetti drew up, but I mentioned those third down numbers, 10 of 14. That is elite performance by a quarterback on third down. They were 0-3 on plays on third downs where they ran the ball.
Yeah.
At some point in time, maybe you just think, hey, these short pass patterns are hitting. You look back to that first drive where they were 4 for 4 on third down. And yeah, the Reynolds catch was like 31 yards. The Johnson catch was 7. But those first 2 third down conversions, those are third and short. Bartholomew needed 4 yards. He got 4 yards. And I think they needed 5 on the second one, and Mumfield picked up 5. Like, it was these short little hitch routes or a pick play or something like that. I get wanting to run the ball once on 4th and short because that's just the type of coach Narduzzi is. You want to establish the run. And like you said, Flemister was playing well. But later in the game, when you just look, do you not see that your quarterback is...
He's cooking. Let him cook.
He was like 8 of 9 on third down. Why are you taking the ball out of his hands in these scenarios? I don't get it. And the other thing that I just don't get, and eventually they went away from it, but how many more times do we need to see them run a screen pass for it to just result in nothing? I mean, you had, like I said, defined concepts that were working.
Yep.
Attacking the middle of the football field. And, you know, when they're playing off, they were hitting these hitches and slants, and it looked like a real offense, Carter.
Yeah.
And then these play calls with just these bubble screens or just these quick screens, not only did they not result in any yardage, they resulted in negative yardage. One of them got Konate Mumfield hurt. And it's a drive killer. And you look at the progress that they make there, and it's the predictability with, you know, they're going to mix in a screen eventually, or you know they're going to try to run it up the middle here and it's not going to work. And I don't get the aversion from just simply doing what is working. Why change it? Why force the notion of, oh, we've got to do this because this is how we win games? Well, maybe do something else. Why go away from the tempo, Carter? They went no huddle on the first drive of the game, and look what happened. They went right down the field. I think it was 13 plays, 75 yards. Veilleux was 7 of 8 through the air, 66 yards. Beautiful touchdown pass. The offense is stagnant. The next touchdown drive they have is their final full possession of the game when they have to go no huddle again. It's 1 minute and 30, and they march down the field and score in like 30 seconds. I don't get why they have to try to fit this square peg into a round hole. It makes no sense to me. Why not embrace your team and personnel and play to its strengths? I don't feel like they did that at the best, and especially in key situations today. Carter, what's your bad?
To cap off your point there, despite those third down numbers, what were they again from Veilleux?
Veilleux was 10 of 14 on third down, 134 yards, 7 first downs, and a touchdown.
They were 9 of 20 on third downs. So even with those numbers, they still converted less than 50% of their third downs, and then they were 0-2 on fourth downs, which also I thought were questionable play calls as well in this game. But to get to my bad, and I've written about this for my post-game analysis piece, because like you said, there were so many good things to this game. What wiped out so much of it is the undisciplined play of this football team. And I'm saying this straight up, Pitt is an undisciplined football team right now. Coming into this game, Pitt was a team that led the conference with 62 penalties for 502 yards. Now, the 502 yards were just 3 yards behind what was Boston College's 505. But with Saturday's numbers, then you take that back into account. You throw in 13 more penalties for 101 more yards. They are by far and away the most penalized team in the ACC going into this week. And yes, there might be some controversial calls in there somewhere, but you cannot be this undisciplined of a football team and expect to win games. And especially the final penalties that killed them after MJ Devonshire's interception. You might have just won the game. You have the ball to 28. You gain 1 first down. It's over. And instead, Donovan McMillan pulls the guy. Now, I will say this: the guy who was wrestling with MJ Devonshire was pulling at his helmet, and that certainly that wasn't good. But Donovan McMillan loses his mind and drags this man a full 5 yards by his leg away from Devonshire, and then proceeds to get in other players' faces from Wake Forest, draws 2 unsportsmanlike penalties in one off dead ball play, and then is ejected from the game. That moves the ball from Pitt's 28 to Pitt's 7-yard line.
Yeah.
Even that after the three and out, we'll get to the Veilleux slide in a minute. I know that's what everyone's waiting for. after the 3 and out and the punt that only went 32 yards, that was a good punt. Wake Forest got the ball on the 48. If he just doesn't commit those penalties and everything else goes as bad as it did, Wake Forest is starting with the ball on their own 41, not on Pitt's 48. This is undisciplined to the highest degree that I think I've seen in the Pat Narduzzi era. And that's something that you and I covered all last year. He often said, we don't do that. We don't do that. They absolutely do that this year. They have, and that again, you talked about play calling. I'm talking about penalties and discipline. That comes back to coaching for this team, and a huge thing that has to be addressed. I'm not even talking about this season anymore. They're 2-5. They just lost to a very beatable team. This season, I think, is done. They need to find a way to build for next year. But that has to be something that is eliminated from this program next year if they want to bounce back.
And to build on that, I mean, McMillan's got to learn, man. That's his 3rd personal foul in like 4 games. So you look, he had that penalty against North Carolina that aided to a scoring drive. And he goes and does this. And like you said, Carter, not only does he screw up the field position here, he gets himself ejected. They didn't have one of their best defensive players on the game's most important possession because he got kicked out of the game. Yep. And that's just, you don't see that. And
they targeted a safety on that touchdown pass.
Right. And I don't know, maybe McIntyre still, I don't know what personnel Pitt wants out there in that specific situation. I'm not Archie Collins or Corey Sanders, but you just got to think. And Pat mentioned after the game, he said, if we didn't get those penalty yards, you figure they start on the 28, they gain 9 yards. So that moves them up to the 37.
Yeah.
They're probably going for it on 4th down there.
Yep.
And if they don't, you figure how far Junko's punt go there? You said like 30 yards. 32 yards.
32 yards.
Wake Forest is starting way deeper
on their own 31.
Yeah, on it. I don't know if they got enough juice to get in the end zone at that point. So that's just inexcusable. Carter, what's your ugly?
My ugly, and before I get into this is not making excuses for Pitt about the Veilleux call. They are undisciplined. They did so many things to lose this game when they had every reason to win this game. This is 100% on Pitt. But that call at the end of the game when Christian Veilleux started his slide on the 3rd and 8 run, he runs. There's no one around him. He gives himself up. They spot him a yard short. I thought that was terrible. EJ Manuel, if you could have watched the ACC like game time panel that they're doing the night game in Miami, and they were talking about that call, the whole panel was just like, oh man, like they had nowhere to defend it. EJ Manuel openly says this is the worst call I have ever seen in football. And frankly, again, I'm not making excuses for Pitt. I get it in the moment, and it's not a reviewable play, and you're not doing it, but you look at that situation. He does slow up a little bit, but he clearly doesn't even start to go down until he's a yard past the marker. And yes, Veilleux could have run for more yards. He could have run out of bounds, could have done all those other things. That was a terrible call. He had won the game. He had crossed the marker. He had slid. That ACC officials, that was a complete botched effort on their part. It does not excuse Pitt from all the bad things they did in this game, but my ugly is that call. It was terrible. What's your ugly?
You're going to make me make the joke, aren't you?
If
only
the slide in Wake Forest?
Yeah, if only he had faked that slide,
Yeah.
Just the cruel irony of that.
Wake Forest fans are living in it. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it on Twitter, but they're like, oh, this is so good. And you know what? I get it. Even though the fake slide isn't what beat them 48 by like 20 points that game, it was still a highlight of that game. But that's so tasty for Wake Forest fans to get that call in that situation there. But either way, it's an atrocious call, but hilarious in the favor of Wake Forest.
The ugly for me is the optics of this loss. I mean, you look at it. This team played a 3rd-string quarterback today.
Yup.
This was their Nate Yarnell game for last year, where you talked about how Nate Yarnell beat Western Michigan or whatever, and all the effort that went into game planning and helping. I mean, this kid had played.
Michigan.
Yeah, this kid played 6 snaps in his college career. prior to today. And he went into the fourth quarter of this game with 36 yards passing. How the hell did Pitt lose this game? And you continue going. I mean, look at the box score here, Carter. It is here. Let me find the game here. 414 yards of total offense, 112 net rushing yards, 3.5 yards an attempt isn't bad, but I mean, or isn't great, I should say. But a 62% completion percentage, 302 yards from the air. The defense won the turnover battle. I just, how do you lose this football game? The stats were in their favor. The personnel was in their favor. Mm-hmm. Pitt was the better team here. But good teams find a way to win, and bad teams find a way to lose. And Wake Forest isn't a good team. They did not find a way to win this game, but Pitt is a bad football team because it found a way to lose. It had no business being in a tie game heading into the fourth quarter with this team. And that's what happens. When you leave it up to the officials to blow a call.
I agree with that.
They'll do
Never put it in their hands.
Never put it in their hands, especially when you're playing a third string quarterback. And that's what happened today. And that's a tough pill to swallow. I understand that, there are people on that Pitt flight home right now that feel like they were cheated by the refs. And you know what? That call drastically impacted the game. But the reality is that should have never, ever, ever been a situation this team was in. And, coaching and self-errors allowed the officials to make a game-altering decision. So that's my ugly is, the refs got it wrong, but so did Pitt in many, many, many ways that despite putting forth what I think is probably its best complete game effort.
That's the crazy part of it.
It looked like a better football team than it did against Louisville.
Mm-hmm. That's the crazy part of it.
It still found a way to lose to a far worse opponent. So that's my ugly. Carter, any final thoughts as we wrap this up here?
That, I believe, is the definition of pitting. And Pitt's had some brutal losses over the years. This ranks right up there with how brutal it was in late fashion and all the things. And pitting involves bad calls. Like I think any Pitt fan will admit, in the middle of your pitting, there's always a call that you hate that makes it even worse. But then you still let it happen when you had a chance to win the game. There's a lot to answer for in this team on all sides. And I think there's going to be a lot of tough questions about the direction this program wants to head next year. If it's not able to get things together. This is a talented team. We saw Sibo Flemister's a good running back. Christian Veilleux, I think he's shown in his first two starts he can be a good quarterback. Bub Means, a guy who we have given a lot of criticism to all year long, was good in this game. Over 100 yards receiving, had that crucial touchdown.
Kenny Johnson, Kanate Mumfield looked good today. There was.
The offensive line didn't allow a sack.
Jordan Bass played fantastic in his first collegiate start. I mean, they've got a lot of young talent. There's certainly something to build from here, but my goodness, it is not working right now.
That's the whole point. You have all this talent, and you're still not winning. Somebody's got to answer for that. We'll talk about that more when we do the Pitt mailbag later this week. I'm sure Pat Narduzzi will also have a lot to say. It is Monday press conference. Thanks for checking out the Pitt post game from Chris Carter and Noah Hiles. Reminder, this show is brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar, the best bar in all of Pittsburgh. If you're a Pitt fan and you need to drown your sorrows, there's no better place to go to because they have over 500 different available beers. So I don't suggest trying them all in one sitting, but you can find your favorite ones as they have 300 of those beers being local and 80 of those local beers being available on tap, and also over 20 televisions with amazing food options. Go to Mike's Beer Bar, the best bar in all of Pittsburgh, located in North Shore across the street from PNC Park. When you get there, tell them Chris and Noah sent you. We'll be back with you on the Tuesday mailbag. Check out all our content at post-gazette.com, as well as the Monday presser from Pat Narduzzi. We'll see you then right here on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our Apple Podcast channel for more podcast content. Click below for a special deal of 99 cents for a 3-month subscription to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.